Hi there, Eric Baker, naturopath, author of Candida Crusher. Thank you for tuning into my video today. Today we're going to talk about men's yeast infections, particularly jock itch, or itch around the men's private parts, around the scrotum, around the penis, around those areas. This is a condition I see quite frequently in males, a condition that drives a lot of guys crazy. In fact, I've had two cases in the last 2 days. One, a 44-year-old male, here from not far from where I live here in New Zealand, and another, a guy in his late 40s from Wellington, which is the capital of New Zealand. Both of these cases are quite similar, and this is going to be quite an interesting video, particularly for males who've got itch in their groin region and who've had no resolution. So let's start with this 44-year-old guy. It was quite an interesting case, and many men will be able to relate this in particular. So this guy had the itch about a year ago. It started, and it just started around his belt line. He's a hydraulic person, so he's an engineer who deals in hydraulics and repairing trucks and things like that. So this guy went to his doctor, and he had a bit of an itch around the belt line, which quickly spread to the groin region. So the doctor had a look at this skin rash and did a biopsy and said, "You've got contact dermatitis." So sent this man away with a bunch of creams. And I've just made some case notes here. This patient came back to the doctor in 3 weeks and the condition was not improved. So patient got sent to a skin specialist called the dermatologist. Patient then got told by the dermatologist it was scabies, which is a mite infection. Again, more creams were prescribed. And again, the same thing. Patient came back to the specialist, wasn't going away with the creams. This time went to another specialist. And this specialist said it was psoriasis. Quite interesting. This doctor gave strong drugs, steroids, which really knocked the patient around quite a lot. Patient improved but wasn't interested in taking steroids, and patient then went to another doctor. So this is doctor number 4 now. And this doctor said, "You've got a fungal skin rash." Finally, we got the correct diagnosis. So, but what did the doctor do? He put this man on antibiotics, which I find quite interesting. Antibiotics are not something a doctor would generally give for a fungal rash that he or she has diagnosed as a fungal rash. They will normally give an anti-fungal drug. But in this case, the doctor decided to give a penicillin-based antibiotic, and the condition exploded. And now it went all over his torso, upper back, neck. We got around the ears, scalp, all over. And I'll call him Gary. So Gary said a few days after starting treatment, he had a shower and his whole body blew up in a terrible skin rash. Since then, he's been to about 14 different people. So we're looking at a guy who's been to about 20 practitioners all up with no resolution. Interesting case. So upon examination of the patient, I have no doubt in my mind that it's a candida fungal skin infection of the groin and various parts of the body. I found it interesting that nobody offered Gary any advice regarding his diet or lifestyle. Even the natural practitioners he went to offered only a small amount of advice here. So my instruction to Gary was to wash the genital region in particular twice per day with a good tea tree oil based soap, and also to use a water-soluble tea tree oil to wash the private area, and to spot treat the tough areas with neat tea tree oil. This was to be done at least twice per day. I also recommended Gary to go out and buy about 20 pairs of new cotton boxer shorts and to put on new underwear at least twice per day. This is very important if you're a guy with a fungal yeast infection, is to maintain very good hygiene, change your clothing often. A couple of tips for you is try not to hop in jacuzzis or hot spas. They're not a very good idea because you'll warm the body up too much. Try and change underclothing frequently and wear loose clothing, particularly cotton clothing. Try and be careful with intimate relations with your partner. Maintain strict hygiene and make sure your partner also is aware and probably goes on an antifungal regime as well. You can read a lot more of these tips in Candida Crusher. In the chapter 4, there's a section called the Quick Start Guide. There's a nice section there for guys on how to get rid of the jock itch problem. Gary's going to beat this skin infection in about 3 to 4 months. I feel so sorry for Gary because Gary said he's got a friend with similar circumstances. The other patient, who's 47, however, is suicidal. This man phoned me up in tears. His wife had left him. His groin rash is so bad. He's eating far too many sweet foods. He can't control it. His business is in ruins. It's wrecking his life. So if you thought yeast infections were only something that involved females, well, think again, because there are a lot of guys out there with fungal skin infections that really have ruined lives because of this terrible problem. The problem cannot be solved purely by dietary means. I'm telling you now, the problem cannot be solved purely by local means, by treating the skin. And the problem cannot be solved purely by lifestyle means. The problem has to be solved by doing different things and combining a proper treatment, focused on the local area and systemic treatment, whilst addressing underlying stress-related issues which a lot of guys suffer from. Now, Gary and this other male are both beer drinkers. So obviously beer has to go. You cannot keep drinking beer when you've got a yeast infection. Gary likes chocolate. And I find many men with a yeast infection will have a sweet tooth, or like beers, or like some type of a sweet food. These things really need addressing. You need to take these foods away from the yeast. When a male's had jock itch for a while, he'll also have dysbiosis and leaky gut. So these are terms I'll go into in other videos, but they'll have a whole raft of problems. And the longer they've had this problem for, the worse these other problems escalate. And when they've had them for a considerable period of time, they can also develop bad anxiety and depression. And in some cases, men even commit suicide with jock itch. It's terrible. I suffered jock itch very bad in my 20s. I could really get no help from the GP. The doctor offered me little help apart from creams. The naturopath really paid lip service to the treatment. I didn't treat it strong enough. So you can really crush this condition if you're serious about it, and make sure you make changes on those levels I just mentioned. So keep reading my articles on yeastinfection.org. If you're a guy and want to beat this condition, buy my book Candida Crusher. You'll find it at candidacrusher.com. Keep an eye on my YouTube videos, and also please do my online course. I've got an online course starting any day now. There's a free shopping, Candida shopping guide handout you'll get as a bonus. It's about 15-page free document for signing up, and I think you'll find that quite helpful when you go shopping. So read my articles on the homepage of yeastinfection.org in terms of men yeast infections, because you can definitely crush this condition. You do not have to suffer with this condition for years like many of my male patients, or like I personally suffered with. So I hope this video has been of some use to you today. Thank you very much.